List of the City of New Haven authorizing New Haven Police Department to submit an application to the Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection in the amount not to exceed $94,444 to conduct an enforced program to auto theft and related crimes during the period December 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023, and to accept such funds in order offer to execute all documents and contracts as necessary. Resolution of the Board of Aldermen of the City of New Haven authorizing the New Haven Police Department, to submit an application to the Connecticut Department of Transportation in the amount not to exceed $20,000 to conduct an target enforcement program to increase seatbelt usage, enforce and awareness for motorists and occupants during the period November 23rd through 30th, 2022, in May 15th through June 4th, 2023, and to accept such funds if offered and to execute all documents and contracts as necessary. Order of the Board of Aldermen of the City of New Haven authorizing the mayor of the City of New Haven to submit an application to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration Integrate Network as Supplement Game Center Train the Trainer Opportunity Internal been to trauma enforce, improve criminal justice systems, respond and to accept all accessory free services if offered and to execute all documents and contracts as necessary. From all dispersants, Altoons and Dakota. Alder Altoons and
Say my name right.
nothing. We are on this line. This is not. This is not. Alder. Alder Jerry Antoon and Alder South Dakota requesting a public hearing on the workshop be held to discuss electrical vehicles fire regarding building codes and other and make the claim that we will protect our citizens through home and business and visitors. These items are on file and available for public inspection in the Office of Legislative Services, 165 Church, New Haven, for Honorable Brown Wingate, Michael Mark, City Town Clerk. If you need any accessibility related accommodations, please contact 203-946-7651 or 203-946-8582 in accordance with the City of New Haven COVID-19 requirements. All attendees must wear masks. Public may send comments to public testimony@newhaven.com. Excuse me, you have to go back 1 minute. I will ask the committee to
That's Ward 12.
Captain Singh, Ward 5. Thank you all for coming tonight. We will be having a presentation in reference to electric car vehicles. Whoever wants to speak to this item, please step up.
We have that.
Say it again,
Master presentation.
if you will. Please state your name and record for that. Please state your name and address for the record. Please.
Thank you. Gerald Antunes, Ward 1, 165 Church Street.
Over Ward 8, 120 Compton. Assistant Chief Justice McCarthy, 952 Manhattan.
Assistant Chief Dave Zanelli, Union Police Department, 1 Union Avenue.
Lieutenant Derek Carpenter, Union Police Department, 1 Union Avenue.
Thank you for having us here this evening. We came here tonight, not with answers, but with questions. New technologies come on, and the public is interested in low emission vehicles. The manufacturers are producing these low emission vehicles. In fact, in California, there's an executive order that in a few years, you won't be allowed to sell internal combustion engine cars. Can we advance this? Electric vehicles are powered by these lithium ion batteries, and they can be especially dangerous on fire. Why? Lithium ion batteries are difficult to extinguish. Next slide, please.
Is the video?
Yes. To give an idea of how this is spreads and how it's difficult for the firefighters to handle. And a little bit we'll let the chiefs talk about it, but I wanted you to see how this fire happens. They say that in most cases, they have to let these fires burn out, and they could take up to 3 or more hours to burn out. Sometimes in the past, when vehicles have been towed to a towing company's garage, they put it in the yard, and the next day, it starts on fire again by itself. The batteries provide their own source of ignition and burning.
Yes, sir. You're fine. Yeah.
Not keep going, so we don't tie it. They're very difficult to extinguish, and most recently, and I believe it's July 23rd of this year, at the Connecticut company bus in Camden, one of their new electric vehicles caught on fire. And the fire chief will talk a little bit more about that as he comes on. But it was another one of those situations where it's difficult or impossible to put out. In fact, one of the things that's happening now is the manufacturers are looking to come to using a different type of battery, lithium ion phosphate, which they say will be safer, but it's something we'll have to see. Many of the automakers are looking at going to those now, or even to nickel or cobalt formulations. Back on. Back on. Get it back.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Yes, in my presentation, I have that fire actually.
Okay. All right, and we can show that on yours.
D'Angelo.
Electric vehicles with lithium-ion batteries burn hotter, faster, and require far more water. You can go to another one, that was fire. And the aftermath. They require far more water to reach the final point of extinguishment. And batteries can reignite, as we were just saying, they can reignite on their own hours or even days afterwards. So we feel that it's important for the city to be prepared in a preventative mode so that we can try and help prevent some of these fires by bringing awareness and maybe even looking at some changes that may need to be made. Now, I don't want anyone to get confused. We're not here because there are a lot of electric car fires, because in fact there aren't. I believe the number is somewhere around 50 electric fires out of 100,000 vehicles. So it's not that there are a lot of electric car fires, but that there are electric car fires, and the intensity can be devastating. And we're not bashing electric vehicles either. We're not here to redesign them. We're here to bring awareness. We want this workshop to bring out the knowledge that is abound amongst us, establish a dialogue, and with some considerations that we feel we may need to look at to keep our public safe. Everyone knows that the alternative fuel is going to be electric for vehicles, cars, and small trucks. I'll just give you a little bit of history. According to the Department of Energy, the electric car was first on the roads in this country in 1890s. And around 1900, New York had a fleet of 60 electric taxis. Want the next slide, please? People like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Ferdinand Porsche all worked to develop electric vehicles. There were actually electric vehicles on the road before gas vehicles. Next slide. From 1996 to 1999, General Motors produced an all-electric vehicle called the EV1. It was an experimental car. It wasn't even sold. They made approximately 1,100 of them, and they leased them to people for $300 a month. And they went back and it was like a live study that they did on these vehicles. For whatever reason, they didn't tell anyone. It came a point where they called for all these cars back and they actually destroyed them all. People loved them. They got so violent. They were all electric. But GM took them back. To my knowledge, I think there's only 2 left and they're in museums. So this is not really a history lesson. We just wanted to bring out some of the background, some information that electric cars aren't new. We're still working on the technology. We want to look at the charging aspect of it. That's what we're here mainly to talk about. And someone had mentioned at one time curbside charging. They have it in some places, one in New York, I think, somewhere in Manhattan. So they actually have the roadside charging stations. We have charging that I know of at the train station. One Union Station, they have a vehicle charge set up. Next slide. Do we really need to consider updating our building codes? These are some of the things that happen with the electric car fires when they're parked either too close to the car, to the homes, or inside the garages. And I'll let Alder DeCola give you a little bit. Alder DeCola is a licensed and trained electrician, so he got a little more insight on that part.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. Yes, as a licensed electrician, my concern is with the city, most of our home roads. And with absentee landlords, people buy electric cars, we try to find a way to charge it. They have adapters to bring it down to 110 instead of 220. And that's my concern for us with our fire department, police department, building department. That maybe it's time for us to look into this and see what we need to do to protect our city and to protect our workers, especially in the fire department, how we're going to address these issues. And that's what Jerry and Tunes and myself wanted this workshop and have the departments here to have this conversation. Where do we go in the future? I don't have answers, but I just have a concern as my colleague that it's time for us to start looking into the future of our city and how we're going to protect each other. Thank you.
Lucas, you can get the next slide, the work should be a video. It shows some thermal runaway. There were a number of vehicles parked at the charging stations. And one caught fire, and if you listen to the sounds like a major blowtorch or flamethrower, and it caught on to 3 other vehicles. Well, it's getting that out rather than here. Well, some of the things we're concerned about, we have questions to ask, is what toxic fumes are emitted from these electric car fires? Or firefighters and police officers have the proper breathing apparatus to use so that they can help to extricate a person from a burning vehicle or structure.
Yes, sir.
That is just to give you an idea of what that's like. And, you know, sometimes you feel you're safe when you park your car next to one of these charging stations and there's another car parked next to it. You see how close they are. They're only a couple feet apart. So it's a major concern. In this city particularly, many of our houses, we have houses in the city that are 100 and more years old. And we know, other department will tell you that a lot of the insulation they had was newspaper. Would burn better than a newspaper from 1800s. So, and the houses close together. Your house is 15 feet apart. Your car is 7 feet wide. So you see the way those flames shot out from underneath it. That could mean 2 houses go up in flames. What kind of precautions are we using? For the homeowners who have electric vehicles parked in their driveways or garages have to add any sort of increased insurance on their homes because of this thing. Again, since so many homes in the city are very old, they do have proper electric service? How we propose talk a little about different services. Some of these cars, when the dealer sells them, they're designed to recharge at 220 volts. But they also say record in case you don't have 220, plug it into 110. That means the amperage down to 15 amps, I think it's on a 110 or 20. And it could create a problem. We're getting at a point now where some of these cars are becoming commonplace and there are a lot more used cars, electric cars out there. So how many miles, how many hours of use and recharging are on those batteries? Could they be put in a dangerous situation? So the question comes in, should there be some ordinance changes, or are our ordinance sufficient? The building inspector was asked to come so he can talk about that site, but he was unable to make it. So, you know, we need to look at those kind of things. When someone puts or buys an electric car, does this house have the proper service to handle that charging? Are there fire suppression devices installed if you have an electric car charging in your garage. Should this be part of the city ordinance? And look at this, it's all about safety. Like I said, we're here more to make awareness and ask questions as opposed to answers. So I'd like to turn it over to the fire chief, he has a lot more information on this fire.
To switch displays.
While they're setting that up, I'll just say that there are, there's some of the new cars that will be coming out next year, the new models that'll be all electric. So you can see that from Toyotas and Subarus to Cadillacs and Lexus, Mercedes, everybody's making them now. There are a few questions when it comes to some of the buildings, the garages, for instance, they already have a 1 hour requirement on any the sheetrock and whatnot that you use inside. Should it be increased to 2 hours? Fire rating. Should it be required to have some fire suppression installed? You know, these are a lot of questions that come up. It's all about the safety. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Your Yale Vice President is here, by the way, in case you want to
Yes.
acknowledge
Good
him.
evening.
Would like to join us? Come on.
We've actually been in discussions about these at some of the students. So this is something we've been researching for a while. First of all, good evening and thank you first to the alders, Board of Alders, for supporting us during this time of us burying one of our own today. We greatly appreciate all of the emails, phone calls, and letters. We want to thank you for that. I also want to thank Alder Antunes because of his car experience. He is very familiar with this type of technology, the history of it, and how it's become prolific in our communities. Electric vehicles and lithium-ion fire safety not only starts with vehicles, but it also starts with the phones that you carry in your pocket. We have had cell phones with starting fires and start fires because of poor technology, because of poor charging, buying aftermarket chargers. I don't know if any of you have ever fallen asleep while you're being on the phone on your iPad and that pillow or something lands on it and you go to feel it and it's warm. When those devices get above 260 to 290 degrees, it starts a chemical reaction within the lithium battery. And it doesn't matter whether it's your phone or whether it's your vehicle. And the only way to stop it is to cool it. Now it's different when you have a small computer appliance that you can disconnect and take outside, God forbid, if it catches on fire. But if you go on YouTube tonight, you can even look at e-cigarettes that have literally burst into flames in people's pockets because they've been carrying them around. They're defective, some of them. The other thing is the aftermarket chargers. We start to see them, they don't regulate the voltage. The ones that are designed for your phone have the technology and circuitry to disconnect the charging circuit when it reaches either 100%, 90 to 100% on the battery, but also if it becomes overheated, it'll shut down. When you're buying and using chargers that were not made for your phone, that technology isn't there. So it continues to charge, it continues to heat up. I want to thank the Assistant Chief McCarthy, who's been working with getting the messaging out, and you'll see that at the end, of consumer product safety. We started it during the holidays, during the fire permit week. And there are videos that we're going to be producing to get out to the public. And Chief Roundtree, who's been assisting me in testing equipment and looking at our response procedures. This is the Connecticut Transit electric bus fire that happened in July of this year. And this is in Hamden, bus shop.
The cause of a massive electric bus fire is now under investigation. This happened in Hamden with crews battling the flames for hours. News 8's Lauren Linder has the details.
For more than 12 hours, Hampton fire crews remained here in the back of the CT Transit bus depot off State Street to contain a fire from one of the fleet's new electric buses, a first for the department. This was the scene at the CT Transit bus depot Saturday morning as bright orange flames burned from an empty electric bus. Hampton fire crews were called to the lot around 7:30 a.m.
Been trained that these fires are very difficult to extinguish.
Battalion Chief Rich Otlowski says the problem with fighting these fires stems from the lithium-ion battery on an electric vehicle.
Ion batteries, once they start burning, if we pour water on them, it actually exacerbates the fire, flares it up even more.
They deployed a couple of water lines to contain the flames to the bus itself, but otherwise let it burn, because they also didn't want chemicals to get into the water and drain into the Quinnipiac River.
We were concerned that any runoff would have made its way into the river, resulting in environmental impact and pollution.
Fire officials say the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection tested the water on site for contamination and found no issues. But holding off on water meant that crews were going to be out there much longer than they're used to.
This is a new challenge for the fire service that we are doing our best to train for and prepare for.
These electric buses are also new for riders like Terry Bowden.
It's transportation back and forth to work.
They only just rolled out in the last year as a part of a multi-million-dollar statewide project. And as a frequent rider, Terry has taken notice.
It's a smoother ride. It's supposed to be better for the environment.
As to the fire, he just hopes it was an isolated incident, as we continue to see more electric vehicles on the road.
Everybody is either forced to adapt to the times, or, I mean, it's just going to happen.
2 CT transit workers exposed to smoke were transported to the hospital as a precaution, along with a firefighter for heat exhaustion. We reached out to CT Transit for a statement about the fire. They had no comment, but told us that the bus involved was bought in 2021. The cause of the fire remains under investigation by the fire marshal. For now, reporting in Hampton, Lauren Linder, News 8. New at 11.
So that's on a large scale. What we're finding and what we've been talking to with our partners at Yale University are the numbers of students in dormitories bringing electric scooters and smaller electric transport devices into their dorms and charging them. Also in the apartments that some of our students occupy, you'll have multiple students within a home. You may have more than 2 to 3 of those scooters in one area. This was a fire recently in the city of New York, where a 92-year-old victim passed away, unfortunately. This was one of those fires where they literally were trapped in the apartment because there were 2 scooters in the hallway plugged into chargers. When one of them reacted and burst into flames and literally exploded, from the reports of the victims in there, they were trapped. And as you can see, because of the height of the victim and where they were located, the companies literally had to go into the adjacent apartment, break through the wall, and rescue the folks out of there, because even the firefighters couldn't pass that fire, because even putting water on it was not enough. So we'll just take a quick look at that.
The FDNY says that a charging electric scooter was behind the massive flames that left 1 person dead and at least 10 others hurt in the Bronx. CBS 2's Natalie Dudridge reports that spoke to a woman who narrowly escaped.
The flames went all the way up, and thank God we was able to come out, but it destroyed my whole apartment.
Anna Rosa and her family had to feel their way through the smoke and rush out their back fire escape after they found their front hallway engulfed.
It was getting like really pitch black and we couldn't see anything. I even had a piece of glass stuck in my back and I didn't even notice because I was rushing to come down.
When I try to go out, all the fire coming from the door. Yeah, it's terrible.
Video shows the flames shooting from the roof of this 6-story apartment building on Park Avenue near 162nd Street around 5 a.m. More than 130 firefighters responded.
The fire started on the 3rd floor and extended up through an interior void. There was a heavy smoke condition on all floors above the fire. Our units entered off ladders into an apartment and found 3 unconscious people and removed them.
Police say a 91-year-old woman was killed and an 80-year-old man is critically injured.
The lady had oxygen, and then there's another person that he has a lot of health issues.
At least 9 others were hurt. 1 firefighter suffered minor injuries. The whole building was evacuated. Residents still don't know when or if they can return.
We got out, trying to get out as fast as we can. People were yelling in the hallway. They were trying to come past us and we were just trying to get out.
We ran out of the house and we had to stay outside for hours.
The Red Cross says at least 20 families have already been moved to temporary shelters in the concourse section of the Bronx. Natalie Duddridge, CBS 2 News.
So let's look at what happens, even with these that have been put out and extinguished, and then removed to maybe a scrap yard or a dump yard. Believe it or not, 3 days later, they can reignite and catch on fire. I'll talk about the tactics in a hot second, but I thought this video clip, these guys are kind of nuts, but they explain the chemistry, the difference between an anode and a cathode, and how a reaction happens once you have thermal runaway and it produces its own oxygen. So what do? We think it's a typical fire, we go put water on it, H2O, it's got oxygen in it too. So in the old days, and older Antonians will remember the magnesium, not the old days, I'm talking about the magnesium engine fires, the old Volkswagen fires that they would try to put out, and you'd put water on it. The chemistry in these, the old batteries were lead acid batteries. They had a liquid chemical that you could charge, you would hold the charge, and it would dissipate and discharge at the same time. The technology that we're utilizing now are hard metals. These are lithium that not only as you charge them, they can discharge, but they can hold the charge a little longer. They're lighter. So what happens is in the technology, your phones get smaller, your computers get smaller, but they last longer. The more you do that, the more chemistry you're putting into that device. And so you have to be very careful about the recharging and the use of it. But this video is an excellent explanation on how it works.
Electric cars have a reputation for catching on fire. And when they do, it's nearly impossible to put them out, and they can reignite days after being extinguished. But what is it that makes EV fires worse than regular car fires? Why are they going up in flames by themselves? And most importantly, how the heck do firefighters put these raging infernos out? Well, today, we're going to find out.
Hold on a second. It's almost the holiday season. And if you've got a business, big or small, then get prepared for that holiday shopping rush with today's sponsor, ShipStation. ShipStation saves you time, money, and stress by allowing you to manage every order in just one simple dashboard. ShipStation lets you automate shipping and easily compare delivery rates to optimize.
And why these fires are a big deal. When EVs catch on fire, they burn 3 times hotter than a typical car fire. Jets of flames are shot out from all sides and toxic gases are emitted. And I mean mega toxic. And it is all because of this. Most EVs on the road today use a lithium-ion battery pack, from the Hummer EV all the way down to the Nissan Leaf. Each EV battery pack is composed of hundreds or even thousands of these lithium-ion cells. Now this one, it's called an 18650 lithium-ion cell. And as you can see, it doesn't look much different than a standard BoA battery. But what's inside is very different. So how about we cut one of these open and see how everything is packed inside here. Don't do this at home. Inside this casing is a metallic anode and a cathode that function as a positive and negative pole. And between them is a non-conductive separator like graphite, which is there to prevent short circuiting. And all of this is sitting inside an electrolyte solution, which aids in the transfer of ions between the anode and the cathode. So because of this design, lithium batteries can discharge and recharge more efficiently than standard batteries. But there is a trade-off. The solvent in the electrolyte solution, it's very, very flammable. With the anode and cathode packed so tightly together, check out what happens when I do this. What happens when I punctured the outer case, I short-circuited the anode and the cathode, and I exposed the solvent to oxygen. What happens when we get air, fuel, and then spark? We get a little fire. And that fire shot right under my gosh dang face. You see me flail like that? I was tight as hell. Put that on a t-shirt. So if a car that has these batteries get in a crash, that whole battery pack can bend, crack, or get punctured, exposing that solvent to the oxygen, creating a short between the anode and the cathode, and getting exactly what we got here. But there are also other ways which these things can ignite without being punctured. That's what you So in this case, the heat from the fire causes the electrolyte solution to expand into these gases. That creates pressure, which ruptures the battery's case. When that happens, the flammable solvent explodes out of the case and ignites when it hits the flame. But even if there wasn't a flame present, excess heat can still cause a battery to ignite because the solvent's auto-ignition temperature is less than 800 degrees Fahrenheit. Once that solvent reaches that temperature, it will ignite as soon as it comes in contact with oxygen. No flame or spark necessary. So if just one of these cells can cause this much chaos, imagine the potential of 8,000 of these acting together, just like in a Tesla Model S Plaid. If even one cell is damaged and ignites, it can cause the whole battery pack to burn for hours. That is called thermal runaway. The initial chemical reaction produces heat, causing more chemical reactions to produce more heat, and so on and so forth. It's a snowball effect or a fireball effect. When you see those crazy videos of electric cars on fire, this is exactly what's happening. Luckily, EV manufacturers understand these risks, so battery packs are super reinforced. Tesla even, electric cars have...
I'm not going to go all the way into it because it's covered in another video. But what he was about to say is, as the technology has evolved and they found out that just even physical rupture can cause this, they started encasing them in a heavier compartment under the car. So what happens when we have a regular car fire? The regular materials that are burning, the engine compartment, the upholstery on the inside, whatever is stored in the trunk, either Class A materials or even plastics, we can put them out with water. We can do that from the top, but to get to that battery compartment is under the car. So it literally requires you to either jack the car up or to have some device that you can get underneath there. The electric battery inside of bikes.
Well, they are the main source of power for e-bikes, e-scooters, and many household appliances. But lithium-ion batteries have become the #1 cause of fire deaths in Vancouver. And after 2 more fires this week, officials are once again sounding the alarm. CTV's Kevin Chirac has more on the risk and what you can do to prevent tragedy.
As the electric revolution gains momentum, so too has a disturbing trend.
We've had over 20 plus lithium ion battery fires in 2022, and 5 of those have been fire deaths. So, I mean, that's a huge numbers.
Dave Mears of Vancouver Fire and Rescue says the fires can spread fast, and that's not all.
Process happens called thermal runaway, where they start an explosive fire, and they actually release a lot of toxic gases.
He says fires are rare when lithium batteries are stored and used properly, but
they do start fires when they've been manipulated.
A more powerful battery into the less powerful bike.
A quick search on YouTube brings up a seemingly endless array of videos on how to get more power or speed out of virtually any lithium-powered device.
Don't tamper with it or modify it in any way.
Usually the e-bike batteries are made up of that.
This battery store owner says a typical e-bike fits 40 to 60 of these batteries.
It's called an 18650.
And has noticed a glaring issue in quality control.
An awful lot of uncertified batteries coming to the marketplace.
His advice, even if you save some cash, it's not worth the risk.
Well, I'll get to that. When we started to have the issue with supply chain issues with COVID, manufacturers were not only laying off their workers, but they were seeking outside regular sources of materials to make everything that we use. Sometimes those are they're coming from regulated industries and countries, and sometimes they're not. So there's a slew of bad batteries, if you will, that are out there. And it happens almost in every industry, even car batteries and the like. So the current tactics that we have in the fire service have not changed. We search for life hazards, we detect exposures, and that means anything that's around that we can keep the fire from spreading. We locate and confine the fire to the best of our abilities, but we have to maintain a positive water source. The reason for that is even though all our trucks carry 500 gallons of water, some of these fires have required 10,000 gallons of water to not just extinguish it, but to cool it. If you can cool it, the thermal runaway stops. All right, fire is just like we are. It needs oxygen, fuel, and heat. You remove either one of them, the fire goes out. But in these, they produce their own oxygen and they produce their own heat. So you have to cool it. After that, use large diameter tack lines and remove the device to an isolated area if possible. And that's been the tactic so far. Now, there's some new devices out on the market. I'm wrapping it up. Don't worry. There's some new devices out on the market. Chief McCarthy and Roundtree. Yeah, we laugh about this a little bit. The technology is coming out now where they have electric vehicle fire apparatus. They've been tweaking it. It shows a lot of promise, but it's a lot of money. And the first few that came out off the line leaked water. And when they leaked water, it got into the battery compartment and caused some issues. They've refined it. We know the manufacturers. We talk nationally and internationally to a lot of folks. But this was in LA. It's Engine 82. I won't play the video. But then there's another device called the Turtle. There's some folks that I trained in Jersey City, captain and another firefighter, who came up with this idea about cooling it. And they came up with a device called the Turtle. And basically what the Turtle does, they actually came up to New Haven to show it to us. And we took it down to the training academy and we tried it out. And it was pretty cool. Just to show you what it looks like without the truck. Still under development, but I've been talking to them about it. I can show some demos. Chief, would you like to go over the consumer tips?
Sure. So, one second, Steve.
That's one of the comment.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the committee and the members for bringing this situation to our committee and bring the awareness to us so we can all educate ourselves and look into this, how best we can start to work around it in our city. So I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. Thank you all.
Thank you for the opportunity. Chief McCarthy's been working on our public messaging because we're starting to see fires and lithium devices on a smaller scale first. They grow into the issue.
Sure. So one of the things that we're trying to push extensively from the consumer protection side of things is the use of proper devices and proper storage. One of the things that we run into regularly is lack of storage and the fact that people have to store things in their home, right? So storing it in an apartment, in a stairwell, in a basement, in even a living room, right? And that has to be an electric scooter, electric bike. And talking to the folks out there, we're seeing 10 to 12 battery related fires a week. It's we're in the process of putting out messaging right now to ensure that people are using batteries properly, as you saw in the videos, where they're not modifying their e-bikes or scooters or any other battery operated devices. If they're using proper charging methods, and then if they have a charging issue, they contact the manufacturer, they're not buying essentially second-hand or inappropriate charging devices. So these are the messages that we want to get out to the community and starting from there. The other issues that we're in talks with on the car side is if you have an electric vehicle and there's any damage, you should report that immediately to your manufacturer or your repair shop. One of the issues that we just were in talks with the Stanford Fire Department about is they recently had an electric vehicle fire. It was shown that the cause of the vehicle fire was a curb that was struck 2 days prior. And the owner of the vehicle knew that he struck the curb, did not think anything of it, but did not realize the damage that was significant on the vehicle. And the vehicle, luckily, caught fire outside the structure, but he normally would charge it in his garage. So these are the types of messages that we want to get out, make sure that the public's aware, and then from there, obviously look at growing trends and monitor what's
everybody, Assistant Chief Justin McCarthy with the New Haven Fire Department to discuss some safety tips for our year of fire safety. One of the things that we're seeing an increase in is fires caused by lithium-ion batteries. These are batteries that are found in just about everything now, from cars to cell phones, electric bikes, scooters, and anything that else takes a battery at this point. These are the rechargeable batteries that we're finding out there. We want to make sure that you stay safe when you use these, because they are efficient and they are great, but they can present a hazard. We want to make sure that if the batteries are ever damaged, we don't bring them in the home. We want to make sure they're disposed of properly, and you can contact us to help you do that. We also want to make sure that we use proper charging. Most of these batteries come with an actual charger that's designed for them. It has certain types of devices kept inside that charger to keep that battery safe. If you find yourself with damage to that, we want to make sure you go back to the manufacturer and get the right charger. Sometimes we see these aftermarket chargers that aren't designed for the device. They can cause overheating, and it can actually cause the batteries to burst and explode and cause fires. This is something we're seeing a lot of, and we want to make sure that you know what to do in these instances. So get out there, stay safe, educate, follow the manufacturer's recommendations, and stay safe, most importantly. We'll see you out there.
Absolutely. First of all, you all have an amazing subject matter experts here in the city of Haven. And Alder, I appreciate reminding me of this evening's theme. From time to time, when being with Chief Paul, we talk about emerging issues. And on the one hand, we're pushing sustainability, not just locally, but nationally, as we should. But, many don't realize the risks that exist if, in fact, we don't approach it. So that's, I'm learning, I'm listening, and I'm learning. The other thing is, I can remember some friends talking on different campuses about the chargers and scooters catching fire, and things like that. So these are some emerging issues that collectively, I think we have the thought leadership, not just in this room, but in the city, to come up with some final standards.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I just thank you for the presentation. I was very unaware of this entire topic with lithium batteries, but obviously it was well researched and well presented, so I just like to thank you for that presentation.
And thank you again for the presentation. Also, I think this condolences go out to your department today. It's hard. Again, thank you for presenting this to us around this was a workshop. So ask anybody to speak to the item on
come up on. If you don't have any more. Um, is there anyone from the public on speak to this item? Going once, going twice, or 3 times, we will close the public portion on this workshop at this time. And then we'll go file that agenda. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. So, someone else had to go to the meeting, so we want to go out of order a little bit. And we will be hearing the substance abuse. Whoever's here to speak to that item, please. State your name and address to the record.
Steve Natali, 55 East Cross Street, here. Thank you. So I'll keep this relatively brief. Recently, my department has become aware of a training opportunity being offered at SAMHSA. It's a trauma-informed training. The model is train the trainer. So basically what they would do is come in, free of cost, the application is awarded, and train up to 20 individuals in trauma-informed training, trauma-informed approaches, and working with criminal justice populations, adult criminal justice population. And so we wanted to submit an application. I think just the mere existence of the Department of Community and Disabilities lends itself to making sure we are at the cutting edge and we remain at the cutting edge of trauma-informed services. I think many people in this room know that trauma is something that is very prominent when you're working with criminal justice populations, and the more that you can respond to that, the better outcomes that you will get when working with those folks. So we think it's perfect and perfectly aligned with what we've been doing, what we desire to do, and what our partners desire to do, and delivering the best services to folks who are the most vulnerable and need the most help. So we just want to make sure that we're trained, and if we have the opportunity to do that, especially free of cost, we want to do that. It's of no cost to the city. There's no matching. It's just for 2-day training prior to time, and then the expectation is that we implement that training again. It's to train trainers. So everyone who goes to this training will be able to then go out and train other folks. So it becomes kind of network of care. In terms of who would be trained, we wanted to start with press partners. So right now we have Project More, Project Longevity signed up. A few of the folks in my department are signed up. The police department has committed to sending a couple of folks. 20 is not a lot, but we're going to try to get our bang for our buck. A couple of folks from parole and probation, and whoever we have room for thereafter. And we have a very intentional plan to make sure that once those trainers are trained within 3 months, we will get that out to other folks, starting with press and then moving outward from there. That's all I have.
Here's the stuff we run back. Yes. Thank you for coming this evening and presenting to us, and I want to commend your department for going out to this grant for training so we can better get our staff and our agency prepared to deal with these situations. And you're going out to these grants.
Thank you so much. I haven't recognized all the majority leader to come say they want to, but we got support on board these items out. Thank you for stepping in.
I have no, just further questions on what we're saying.
I'm going to comment and I will come to that.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the committee? Okay. So we have 2 more items.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. I just want to introduce one of the newer grant opportunities that was brought to our attention that we want to present for approval. It's for $94,444. It's for enforcement activity and personnel overtime reimbursement for the state. And it is to combat auto theft related crimes. As you know, the cold weather approaching, we have a seasonal issue in the city where some folks warm up their cars, leave the car keys in the ignition, and sometimes the cars are stolen or broken into. With the holidays approaching, folks leave the gifts in plain view. This grant would allow us to save the city some money in overtime and have the unintended effects of actually probably lowering violent crime in certain hotspot areas as well. Lieutenant Gardner is here to present a plan on how we're going to execute this plan. There is no requirement for matching, and this is primarily for overtime coverage. Thank you.
Good evening. This is a new grant offered through the state. It's for a year-long time period, or until we spend the allotted $94,000. So in 2021, we had 619 motor vehicle thefts in the city of New Haven. The aim of this program is to reduce the number of motor vehicle thefts and related crime incidents during the period of December 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. Also, do the assigned areas of the city. During their assignment to targeted enforcement and crime related to such. These officers will address motor vehicle violations, parking violations, identify suspicious persons, in order to deter, prevent more motor vehicle thefts throughout our city. They'll also identify any stolen motor vehicles and conduct the appropriate enforcement. And when locating any unoccupied stolen motor vehicles, they'll recover those in the camera to the rightful owners. And that's basically the overview and the plan. We'll use our crime stats and our crime analysts to identify the hotspots and the time periods and the days when to deploy these resources to make it most effective. That's all I have for that this evening.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee on this particular item?
Mr. Chair. The paperwork here says that it was due, the application was due on the 1st of November. So was that submitted already?
The application has been submitted.
Know the status of it right now?
I have not heard back. I believe it's still in process.
Can you give us an idea what kind of equipment you're looking for? So what's the equipment there as well?
So there was a miscommunication. Initially, we were under the impression that we could also purchase equipment with that funding, but that is incorrect. So there's no equipment to be purchased.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'm really sure we'll be happy in reference to this grant. We got a lot of things moving on. It's that season, right? So I want to thank you for going out this grant. And recognize city safe support.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Any questions, any more questions on this particular? Moving on.
Yeah, yes, sir. This is the annual click it or ticket grant that will pay $20,000 for overtime, personnel, and whatnot. We do this and present to the board every year for permission to accept. And it's one of the things that requires us to survey an area for violations. And this also goes into our mission to increase driver safety in the city. It's been a big concern for the board holders in the community. And it's been a big priority for this administration, this police department. So I'll let Lieutenant Gardner speak on that as well.
The Chief said this is an annual grant. It's the part of the statewide click it or ticket initiative that is highly advertised every year around the holidays. There's three portions of this. The first portion of it is data collection. The officers have to go out and survey the area, the targeted area, for 1 hour prior to enforcement. So not the same day, but prior to the day of enforcement, you have to go out and survey that area for an hour or at least 200 cars. And they have to note yes or no if the operator is wearing a seatbelt. We collect that data, we submit that data ahead of time. Then we go back out, conduct enforcement, then a week following, we go back out again and do post-survey, collect data, do the same thing for an hour or 200 vehicles, in hopes that the enforcement now has lowered the number of seatbelt violations in that area. And all that information is collected and submitted to the state as part of filling grant applications. We have to pick the dates and locations ahead of time. The dates and locations we've selected this year for Route 80 in Quinnipiac is going to be November 29th. November 30th is going to be Elm Church. And then we have a second wave that we're obligated to fulfill in the spring, early summer. And 5/30/2023, we're going to be on the Boulevard conducting a clickety ticket checkpoint.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just the goal of the whole program is obviously to reduce the number of seatbelt violations throughout the city and bring increased traffic safety.
Thank you again for going after this grant and helping us to make our city and residents safer. You know, sometimes we still have to keep repeating that message. Thank you.
Any questions on the furlough?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question. How do you count the cars?
We'll have a little
Manually?
yeah, so the officers sit out there, they have to actually be seated in a cruiser, observing the cars at the intersection. So we'll have a team of two of them. One can count the cars, one can look for the seatbelt violation. And they just jot it down, they give us a little worksheet, 200 cars, and yes or no all the way through, and then we submit that as data collection.
Is it an additional expense to have that, you know, the machine that does it?
We'll have to probably traffic and parking, we could solve that, but I think we're good with the old fashioned manual.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You know, I just, this being a reoccurring grant in the past, being the second time around on the safety, right? I always question why do we have to make the notice on where we want to be in reference to the click ticket situation, right? Like, is that part of the grant, right? Or do you have to make that notice, right? You have to, that's the part of
It
it.
is part of it, because the way we're actually doing it, I forgot to mention, it's sort of a checkpoint. So anytime you're gonna have any sort of checkpoint and stopping traffic and observe for violations like that, we have to let it be known to the public.
Well, thank you. Thank you again. Do you have any more?
I just want to say thank you, Lieutenant Gardner, for helping launch these and present these tonight. I also like to thank the Board of Alders for last week, the presentation, the automatic citation to Officer Chad Curry. It certainly meant a lot to myself. Officer Chad Curry was one of my officers in Fairhaven, but also to all the men and women of the police department. And, you know, the Board of Alders has been extremely good to us this last month, but not only Officer Curry, but Officer Hinton passed away from cancer. So I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone at the state of Lateral and all the Board of Alders. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for the role that you do. It's not, you know, we don't miss it. We understand both sides of this situation, and we try to celebrate our officers as much as we can. It's a dangerous job. So we want to say thank you for what you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is anyone? Anybody from the public want to speak to this item? Going once, going twice, going 3 times, here none, I will ask to close the public portion.
Make a motion to close the public portion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The public portion has been closed.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. I will ask for a motion. of this item. I would like to move all 3 items together.
Second.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move item number 1.
All in favor? Opposed? Discussion.
All the same. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I commend the department for going after these claims, and especially since it's no cost to the city and for the improvement.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's a great opportunity. I thought, all the items right here are really good to get. This is basically keeping us safe. So I support this as well. We have no comments on it. We can just vote if you like.
I don't know. I'm good with these, they're mainly rented somewhat frequently, they help us out in the city, and, they're needed. I just like to see more of them.
So, I will take a vote on item.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve both of these items.
Second.
All's in favor? Aye. Opposed? Extension? I'll take a motion to close the meeting to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, I might have missed it. I don't know what you all did. What are we doing with the workshop item?
I forgot all about that. I mean, I guess we can just, want to table the issues. So, I think it's early. I personally think it's a lot of unsafe. It's unsafe to vehicles. I didn't discuss it before. Right? I don't know if we're ready for that. In our public safety cars and trucks, and I don't know if we like that. But it's just my opinion. But we can table it or just we can file it.
Or we can take no action.
Yeah, I think you've met the request,
Yeah.
which was to have the workshop.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a request from other colleagues or other people to do something specific, then that would be something that somebody will submit
Because
going forward.
there's nothing.
Yeah, so if the sponsors are okay with you reading and filing it, then that would be
So
fine.
you wanna go back around and try to convince us to read and file it, or what you wanna do?
If I need to go around, I will.
Oh, no, you can stay there. You're in deliberation, so he doesn't need to go around.
I have no problem with being filed. That was our intent, to bring out the information, to try and get the minds going and the safety concerns up front. Reading file is not an issue. I think at some point later on, we could talk to either legislation committee, building inspector, fire sub-team is needed. So I think it's beyond this committee. I think we use this committee for this workshop to get the information out.
Okay, so we're gonna read and file the workshop.
So we'll need a motion from somebody in a second, and you all to vote on it.
Yeah, do I have a motion to read and file?
Well, can I make the motion since?
Yes, you can make the motion. Yes.
I move that we read and file the.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? I think it will be appropriate to make a motion to adjourn at this point.
Chair, make a motion to adjourn.
What was his motion?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.